I'm standing in front of Temple Sinai with my sister Rhonda. We've just gotten out of Hebrew school, and we hate Hebrew school. I've been there an entire school year, and the only fucking thing I've learned is Hashem Shali Sandi. My name is Sandy. So if they open up a Costco in the Gaza Strip, I'm the girl, they can hire me. Okay, we hate it. But we're waiting outside for our mom to pick us up, which is always an embarrassment because she drives, it's like a Sanford and Son vehicle. It's this old Dodge Dart that's falling apart. And you can hear her way before you see her because the muffler is always dragging. So the sparks are flying as she pulls up. So she pulls up, and thankfully on 112th Street in Queens, nobody sees this rent-a-wreck. It's not even a rent, she owns it. Okay, so we climb in the back seat, and I could tell right away that Greta, my mother, is really angry because when my mother's mad, her face gets more sweaty than this, and it gets really big. Now, if you're old enough to remember Ernest Borgnine in McHale's Navy, when he's like yelling at some idiot, that's what my mother looks like. Okay, so I'm thinking right away, well, obviously I've done something wrong, and I'm running back the week. I'm thinking, okay, I cheated on a math test. Maybe Mrs. Ostroff called. Okay, I broke her #1 mom mug. Maybe that's the thing. And I keep replaying the whole week, and then she stops and she says, no more Hebrew school, no more temple. We've been kicked out. Now, Rhonda and I look at each other. God has answered our prayers. I mean, how did we get this goddamn lucky? So I'm thinking, why? Why are we being kicked out? Okay, apparently Rabbi Bagelman has decided to use the temple slush fund, which is supposed to be for poor schmucks like us, and instead he decided to go on a trip, a pilgrimage he called it, to make it sound more holy, to Israel, where he was bringing back the 10 Commandments. Okay, now I'm 9 years old, and I'm a literal thinker. Why would the state of Israel give a reformed schmutzy temple in Queens these holy pillars? And even if they were for sale, wouldn't they go to, like, you know, the Museum of Natural History? They should be next to the Rosetta Stone, or like a really fancy temple like Emmanuel on Park Avenue. But I start to ask my mother, and she says, oh, shut up, you moron. They're replicas. They're replicas. He just wants to make the temple look fancy, like put it on the... I know to shut up, because you know what? My poor mom, she's got a lot more to worry about than whether or not we ever get bat mitzvahed, which was certainly not in the cards, because we could barely afford to go to the Sizzler. So she says, we're going home. So we go home, and meanwhile, my sister and I are laughing, because this is like the best news we've had all month. And it really is the least of our problems, because in our house, sitting on our kitchen table is a mountain of bills that say, like, stamp second notice, and they will never be paid. And they all have the same return address. It's either a hospital or a doctor or some lab, because the real elephant in our dinette is my sister, my poor sister Rhonda. Now, she was born in 1953 with a hole in her heart, which is no big deal now. But when you have a cardiac condition back in the 50s, it was considered a very short life sentence. And the doctors had told my parents, she's not going to live very long. But she has outlived all of the what the doctors had said by all their advice, and she's now 12, and she seems perfectly fine to me. She's my sister, even though I know we have to take special care. Things are a little different. So we're always more worried about Rhonda than we are about whether or not I'm going to speak any Hebrew. Now, my sister and I, we're very close because it's sort of us against the parental units who are insane. So what we do is we lock ourselves in our bedroom and we play the same kind of games that everybody else plays, except our room looks different. Instead of those shelves that everybody had with like Candyland or Risk and maybe a few dolls, ours are covered with gauze pads, Physoderm, and these exotic pill bottles with names like Digitalis, because my sister had sludgy blood apparently, so she had to take all these drugs. And my mother's wisdom was, I was basically in charge of my sister's health care. So at 9, I was supposed to rat on her if she didn't take her meds, or if I saw something oozing on her, because she would get a lot of different surgeries, like open heart surgery. 9 years old. It's like the MASH unit in our room. But it's all I knew, so I was all right with it. And we still played like kids, like hot lava, where our room was really small, but we would jump from one bed to the other, and the green shag carpet was the magma. So if you landed on that, it was like over. And then we invented this amazing game which we didn't know that was really a thing, which was we'd lay on one bed and put the soles of our feet together, and the object of the game was one of us had to straighten our legs. Whoever could straighten their legs was the winner of the game. It was like early isometrics Jane Fonda, before Jane Fonda. But the highlight of our bedroom, the showpiece, was our tiny portable TV, which had a knob that required pliers to change the channel. Because we only had 4 channels. And we had the tin foil on the antenna for HD quality. And we didn't know any better, so we loved it. And we would sit every night, as often as we could, and watch TV, especially, hopefully, at dinner time. Now, here was the deal. Our apartment was as hot as this room, all year round. The reason being, we lived on the ground floor, and there was this huge furnace pipe right in our front hall that I'm fairly certain heated the whole line of the building. So it was like the Titanic coal room for those guys who were shoveling. It was so hot. So my parents insisted on not wearing any clothing. It wasn't good. My mother was a big gal. And she claimed that she just had big bones and retained a lot of water. But she didn't wear a bra, she wore a brassiere. And it had like 200 eyes and hooks in the back. And she was big. And she wore those like canes for her, big. And my dad, who was a hot mess, he always had on this like undershirt, and it had like stains in the morning when he put it on. And this was not Marlon Brando in this is not good. And my sister and I didn't want to eat with these people. We didn't even believe they were our parents. Now, my mother made all of her dinners with one main ingredient, Campbell's soup. It was either pork chops with cream of mushroom sauce, or her favorite, meatloaf with the vegetarian soup that came with alphabet letters and noodles. So if we ate with them, and my sister and I sat there, and my mother, I guess I do it a little bit too, she eats with her mouth open and mostly yelling at my father, because my father was always just disappointing her. You'd see letters flying and landing on the continental shelf, and in the cleavage there'd be like an X and an N and a Y. All right, so, and we were like skinny little runty kids. We never had any appetite. My mother didn't know. It was because I couldn't look at this sweaty woman with her big titties and all the food in there. So we said, please, can we eat in our room? Now, my mother was always happy to let us leave the room because she wanted to berate my father even more. So we had snack tables, and we would choose either chicken pot pies, Swanson's, loved those little baby peas, or when it was a really special night, the TV dinners, turkey with the apple or peach cobbler. I mean, come on! Okay, so now, all right, usually the lineup was like, My Favorite Martian, My Mother the Car, and then later years, Get Smart, or I Dream of Jeannie. All of our favorite shows. And, I mean, we were obsessed with TV. But once a year, the pièce de résistance, The Wizard of Oz would come on. Only once a year. You had to wait. There was no on-demand. There was no video stores. You just had to wait. And this was a highlight. So we would set up our meal, and usually it was like a chocolate egg cream and the SpaghettiOs, whatever. And we're watching this, and as soon as Judy Garland, now I want to just, before we go any further, I did not plan on looking like Dorothy, and I don't know why, subconsciously this happened. Okay, but we loved this movie. So we would put on The Wizard of Oz, and as soon as Judy Garland started singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Greta, like a dog hearing a whistle in another town, would come in and start singing and sobbing, which would be embarrassing, but I also would cry. Now, what I found out, I swear to God this is true, it was genetic that my mother's side of the family, the Goldmans, cry when we hear music. Now, I can bear this out because when I went to sleepaway camp when I was 9, and I was like the worst loser there to start with, but I made it worse because we sang like these group folk songs like, If I Had a Hammer, and I'd be sobbing, or It's Got the Whole World in it, sobbing. So I was tagged as a crazy crybaby. And then, to make the icing on the cake, we ate in a mess hall, family style, and one night our counselor served cling peaches and heavy syrup, which happens to be a family favorite. And I didn't know that there was an accounting for the peaches. And I took 2. And apparently there was only 1 peach per camper, which was pointed out to me by the counselor, who told me that I was being very greedy. I'm 9 or 10. I'm already a crybaby. Now I'm a peach pig. So all right, so we have to deal with that. Okay, so it's fine. All right, now, so this is what we did. We would watch a lot of TV. Now, when the weather was warm, Rhonda and I played outside. And I was also in the secret garden with Rhonda, because my mother's genius was, if she's on limited activity, so are you. Why should you learn how to swim or ski or do anything? It's not fair to Rhonda. I was totally on board. I had no interest in ever hurting myself. I didn't need to sled. I didn't need to do anything. So the two of us, we took it easy, which is I still do, and I'm almost 60. So, but we did have this one really fun activity. We had 1 pair of roller skates, 1 pair. Now, you might think that we took turns. No. We shared them. She wore left, I wore right. And we mastered the art of the roll walk, which is not that easy. You got to practice. And that was all the energy we needed. So we would roll walk, 1 skate each. We looked like quite a scene, all the way to Yellowstone Park, which back then was called Devil's Hill. And the reason it was called Devil's Hill is because kids kept winding up in the emergency room when they would sled down this rocky path and hit this like barbed wire fence. In addition to that, this was in the olden days where we had hot metal swings. So you go out there in July, you sit on a swing, your skin would come off. But we were fine about that because we didn't even really swing. We just sat on the swings. We didn't want the activity of having to pump our legs. Oh, no. Now, I was really protective because Rhonda she really did look very different than other children. She had purple lips, and she had very thick fingers, and she had kind of wispy hair. And that was probably from her medication. And in addition to that, she was also, we were both super tiny. You could see, she's a poor little thing with her purple lips. And we were really both so tiny. So the two of us together combined probably weighed about 75 pounds. But we would go in the park, but I was like a dead end kid because I was her protector. And it was my job to make sure she was safe. And kids are mean. And kids would make fun of her because of her purple lips or her fingers. But I was always there with like my shoulder in it. Like I get my dukes up, like as if I was going to use my dukes, if that's what they're called. And I don't think I've never even slapped anybody, but nobody went near my sister. Because as soon as I went like this, it's all about the attitude. Just pretend you're a tough guy. And nobody ever touched her. So I have to say, I did take good care of her. And she appreciated it, even though she claimed she didn't need my help. But I'm glad I did. Okay, so as time went on, Rhonda had to go to high school. Now, this was back before inclusion, okay? So if you had any health issue, they'd ship you off somewhere. And all she needed was an elevator because she couldn't climb any stairs. So she had to go to Francis Lewis High, which is about 5 miles away from Forest Hills High, because they had one. And she was clumped together with a group. Her best friend Miriam, blind, her boyfriend Jerry, CP, in a wheelchair, and all of her friends were either poking around with a stick or wheeling around. She was fine. Now I was intrigued by all of this because I wanted to know about these people. So I used to convince her, bring them home. I want to meet these people. So I did warn my mom, for the ones that weren't blind, to put on a house dress. Nobody needed to see that. They'd want to put them in some sort of epileptic shock. So once a week or so, a short bus would pull up on Yellowstone Boulevard, the ramp would go down, and in would come all these kids rolling and tapping, and I'd make sure the furniture was out of the way. And I had this fantasy, because I'm a crazy person, that I was Jerry Lewis, and I was going to throw a telethon. So I had all the kids in. I'd be serving refreshments. I wanted to entertain them. And they liked coming over. They kept coming back. And my mother was so annoyed because they kept scuffing up the walls with their chairs. I didn't care. I was like, the apartment's such a shithole anyway. Who gives a shit? So it was fun. And that's how we lived. And it was fine. And I went off to Forest Hills High School, and I started my own life. And I wasn't with her as much, but we were still super close. Okay, so time passed. And on July 3rd, 1974, the inevitable became our horrendous reality. And Rhonda just didn't wake up one morning. She'd already been a college student. She was engaged to be married to her boyfriend, Jerry, and she just didn't wake up. And here's the thing. Do not ever get very sick. That's Jerry. That's my sister. Don't ever get sick over the July 4th weekend, because her cardiologist was playing golf, And all of the new doctors, the residents, were on a new rotation, and they had probably just gotten out of school. She didn't have a fighting chance at Long Island Jewish Hospital. I named that hospital. We never sued them because we couldn't afford a lawyer, but I would have if I could have. Anyway, Rhonda was gone, and we were bereft, obviously, to lose a child and to lose my only sister. This was the worst thing that could happen. And now, we're not Jews anymore. We don't even have a temple. We don't know what we're going to do. So we call our friends, and they find us a rabbi, and they send us to the Garlic Funeral Parlor on Queens Boulevard to meet Rabbi Schwartz. And we're just so despondent, but we just sort of shuffle in, got to get this done. And I hated this rabbi. The minute I walked in there, he looked and he smelled like an everything bagel. He had like a poppy seed stuck between his teeth, and he had that like awful breath. And his suit was shiny, and he had dandruff. His wife probably ironed it. And he talked in that stupid rabbi voice where he said, you know, Rhonda is in a better place now. The angels have better work for us. Thank God I was so stoned on Valium, or I would have leaped across the desk with like a pen and I would have stabbed this man. Okay, so my mother was smart enough to make her own eulogy and hand it to him. And she said, do not stray from the copy. Read exactly what I've written, please. Okay, the next day we show up back at the Garlic Funeral Parlor. It's packed to capacity. And gratefully, he tells the congregation about this beautiful 21-year-old girl who lived as fully as she could, going to college. She wanted to be a painter. She had a boyfriend. She loved her family. She was funny and smart, never complained, totally optimistic. She was loved by everybody. Okay, so then it's over, and we're all obviously bereft, and we straggle on out, and now we're told we have to sit Shiva for 7 days. And we don't want to be Jews, but we have to do this. So we go home, and we have these like pretend wooden boxes that are made out of cardboard, and we have to cover all the mirrors because you're not supposed to have any vanity, like who gives a shit about how we look. So we sit for a whole week, and that week's up, and that's it. We're done. We're not Jews anymore. We're not interested. What kind of God would let something like this happen? And now time passed, and I still lived in that house, apartment, for 3 more years. I was still a young person, and I still slept in my bed. Her bed was made with her special tossed pillows, all in the exact order that she loved them. And the only thing that changed was her clothes kept moving further, and just further back in our closet that we shared. And finally, at some point, I knew it was time for me to move on. I was 21 and I had to get out of the house because my parents were clinging in a way that if they could have sealed me in some sort of bubble, they would have. And I understand it now that I'm a mother, but back then, it was just, I was completely smothered. And time went on and life was okay, but I gotta say, if I had to do one thing, if someone said, where would you like to be at this moment? It would be back on Yellowstone Boulevard, standing in front of that silly little black and white TV, which, by the way, I had no idea Emerald City was in color. Didn't matter. I'd be in front of that TV with Rhonda, and we'd just be clicking our heels, because no matter how shitty it was, there really was no place like home. Okay. Now, we're not Jews anymore, but we're still kind of Jewy. I mean, I loved going to my grandma Hannah and my grandpa Abe's house, because they had, like, my grandma Hannah would make stuffed cabbage in the kitchen. She had those huge bat arms, and she'd be like ventilating the house. The things are swaying, and she would say stuff like, the next door neighbor's daughter, miskite, which if you don't know Yiddish means hideous. I loved all of that. But that was it. That was the extent of our Judaism. But my mother still had one high holiday that she took really seriously: Thanksgiving. Now, she didn't do any of the research, okay? She didn't care about the rapey, pillagey shit, like all that, whatever, raping, pillaging, whatever. She loved it because this was one day a year where she could show off her like catering dreams. Like, she thought it was like, you know, like think Game of Thrones with all the goblets and shit and people sitting around eating mutton. Well, that my mother loved this holiday, and she had her favorite recipes, like the sweet potato pudding that was made with chunks of Dole pineapple and those huge jet marshmallows that she didn't even like bother to toast, she just spunked them in there. And then my favorite was the cranberry relish, which, to be fair, wasn't a relish. It was a gel that would be sitting on a small bone china plate twitching because it had just been dumped out of that can. You could still see the rings from the can. I love that. And then my father's specialty was the turkey, which was like one of the ones with the pop-up thermometer, and it was Swift's butter, some crappy. You probably got it for free if you spent $80 on your groceries. All right, that was the turkey. And then he thought he was such a bon vivant, so he would carve it tableside. But he used an electric knife. It was like the Nylon Massacre. Every year he's like chopping. You got turkey bits and bones are flying. It's like Dexter. It's fine. That was what we did. Okay. Now I had chores. Now when my sister was alive, the two of us negotiated. We split them up. But now I had to do all the chores. The first one is lemon oiling all the living room furniture. This was a thing we used to do. We used to lemon oil. But the reason this is ridiculous in our home is because a few years before, my mother went on this rampage and bought this thing called Antique It. All right, now if you don't know what this is, it was a kit. And what you would do is strip the dignity off of all your furniture, strip it down, just strip no matter what you have. Then they give you like a glove and some sort of compound that you rub back on it. It's supposed to look antique. It just looked shabby, but not chic shabby, just shabby. And my mother thought everything looked so fantastic, whatever. She wasn't fooling anybody, it was hideous. Okay, so there was that. And then we had to polish all the silver. Now here's the thing. My mother actually did come from a very fine family before she met my dad. She was raised in Montreal. Her father was like a really well-known doctor, and her mom just like threw tea parties and stuff, and they all wore pearls, and they were all really lovely. And she, all right, that's my mother. Look how very like pearls, real pearls, not like fake pearls from Claire's, real. And she was very adorable. But here's the thing: my grandmother said her two brothers, who were younger than my mother, went to McGill, which is a great university, and then one went to law school, and the other went to medical school. And she told my mother, get married. Now, my mother was smart, and she wanted to be a somebody, but she's not being given any money to go to school, so she thinks she's going to really scare her mother. So this is the first of her many mistakes where she says, fine, sure. Oh, you'll be sorry. I'll show you. I'll go to New York and I'll meet somebody and you'll never see me again, which is ridiculous. But that's what she does. So she goes to New York. She's 18 years old. It's an idiot move. She goes out on a date with a dude, Arnold, my father. And he just had his high school diploma, no skills at all. And he was leaving for Korea. They start dating briefly. He goes away. He proposes, I think, in a letter that used to say par avion, those letters, and they get married when they get back. This man who got discharged from the army, I swear this is true, even though they're dead, they can't confirm. He shot an American. Okay, now he claimed that this American was a spy. They were like in basic camp in Alabama. This was not a spy. My father obviously discharged his weapon. So they got rid of him, which was smart because God knows the carnage. Because I knew from the turkey he was trouble. And he could not hold a job. The longest holding job he had was at the Creston Crayon Factory, which was imitation Crayola. Can you imagine? You're working in a crayon factory and it's not even Crayola. It's like waxy, shitty. I mean, he'd bring them home, and my sister and I would say, no, go get us like real crayon. It was so the poor guy. All right, and my mother was so frustrated because my sister's doctor bills were piling up, and this guy is not okay. Now I do know that the reason I never bonded with him is because when I was about 8 years old, my mother pulled me and my sister aside and, like in a stage whisper, said, I'm leaving your father. I didn't even know what to do with this information. This was before I heard about the 10 Commandments, but I'm still like, what the So, I figured, why get used to this guy? He was like a boarder, like the grandparents used to have. Oh, just say hello, it's the boarder. That's what I thought of my father. I didn't think there was anything to it. All right, so here I am. I'm now back to the silver. I'm polishing this fucking silver. And when I get to the teapot, what I do every year is I start fantasizing that a genie, It's going to come popping out of this fucker. And this year, I know my bar is set so low. I just want the genie to do the rest of the polishing. I don't need anything. I don't know what to need. But this year, a Thanksgiving miracle happens. The phone rings. It's a friend of mine saying, do you want to be in the Thanksgiving Day Parade? What? Yes, yes. All you have to do is show up tomorrow morning at Macy's at like 9 a.m. Now, meanwhile, I'm thinking, if you're going to be in a parade, you have to be like a beauty queen or somebody really important. But no, all you have to do is work in Macy's or know someone else who works in Macy's. Because you know all those balloons, they don't float by themselves. They need a lot of people handling all this crap. So, but I have to tell my mother, and I know this is not going to go down. So, but I've already done my polishing. I've lemon oil. So I say, Mom, and I'm 20. I'm a grown-ass woman almost, codependent woman. So I go to the kitchen, and I know this is not going to be good. So I say, Mom, I just got this great opportunity. I will be back by 3 o'clock, plenty of time before Lily and Jack and all the other relatives come. And she does the classic move, which if you have a Jewish mother, where she says, fine. Fine. And if you had subtitles, would say, just turn the oven off when you get home. I had set it with my head in there at 450. No problem. But I ignored it. I was going to be in a parade. So I get to Macy's, and I get totally tricked out. I am a pilgrim. They have me in petticoats and crinolines and a bonnet and gloves. I look like the Jewiest Amish girl, you know. And I can't wait to find out what they put me on a huge pirate ship, like Pirates of the Penzance, and it's like, that's nothing to do with Thanksgiving, but I don't care. I get on that thing, and now I'm wondering, all right, who's the guest of honor? Is it an astronaut? Is it the mayor? No, it is the song stylings of a very popular disco group called The Tramps with 2 M's, okay? And if you're old enough to remember them, they were very popular back then, and on a loop, as we wended our way down 6th Avenue, was Disco Inferno on a continuous loop that we just sang and danced. Now, it was 5 degrees out, and it's hailing, and we're all gyrating, because if we don't, hypothermia is going to set in. And it was the most magnificent day up until that point in my 20 years that I'd ever had. Children are waving like maybe I was a beauty pageant winner. Who knows? It was great. And I didn't think of my mother once the whole time. Then we get back to Macy's, I give them back my stupid costume, and then I have to take that F train back to Forest Hills, and I know what's going to be waiting for me at home. It's like, my house is like the Hurt Locker, okay? It's like you walk in, you don't know where the bombs are, so you tend to like walk around, try to be nice, so I get back home, and my mother, she does something which is even worse. She's really nice, you know, trouble's really coming. And she doesn't say a word, the relatives come, it's all fine. But you know what, my mother, she's like herpes simplex. It's like she's always there with that weapon where you get the one bad outbreak, and then it goes away, and then you feel the tingling on your lip, and then it's the bump is back, and it's like, fuck. And I'm going to give you an example to illustrate my herpes simplex point. When I was like, I don't know, 14, I'd gone to the movies with my friends, and I hadn't invited my sister, because my sister had different friends. She didn't need to go everywhere with me. But I knew my mother was disappointed in me, that I was not being a good sister. But she waited. She waited because she wanted to use her best weapons, her herpes weapons. So she waited like a week. And then we're in like Abraham and Strauss and Roosevelt Field, riding up an escalator. And then just at the moment where we're getting off, she says, you know, when Rhonda's not here, you're going to be really sorry. What does one do with this information? I'm going to be 60 in August, and I still remember what the air in that department store felt like. That is a trauma you do not do. That fucks up your kids. All right, but I have to let it go. She's my mother. So, I mean, it was fine. Time went on. We all managed to just get through it until the coup de grace, which was after I became an adult and tried my best to stay away from home by raising my own family and having my husband and being an adult without feeling like a parent. My mother would call me like 6 times a day. What's new? What's new? What could be new? I just saw you. I mean, it was not easy. I understood where it was coming from, but I was losing my mind. And she never thought she could see the kids often enough. I lived in Westchester. She was still in Queens. So finally, she pulled out that card that she had used a million times. And she said, well, if we can't see the grandchildren more often, we're just going to have to move down to Florida. 6 months later, I gave them the deposit, and they bought a lovely condo in Sunrise Lakes in Sunrise, Florida. And they actually really liked it. They were really happy. And they were all grandparents at this complex, but they had signs like, red ants, don't walk on the grass, or no children in the swimming pool. Didn't matter. They were happy. That's all that mattered. And in spite of the fact that they had a clubhouse with these angry men in their lined pants yelling at each other, they were cheating at poker, my mother was seriously happy because she finally found her calling. Because my mother, who had told us when we were kids that she wanted to be a singer, was finally realizing her dream. Because now she was the star of the Sunrise Lakes Phase 2, that's my mother, Phase 2 Serenaders. And she was the diva, and she loved it. This was her thing. She practiced at home. She had a Mr. Microphone, and she would practice for my father. My father was so in love with this woman, in spite of the fact that she was so cruel to him. He used to tell us that when they first married, she was so hot that she looked like a brick shithouse. Now, I'm sure that was something back in the 50s. But again, I'm thinking, what is that? Like, does she look like a box of shit? Does she look like a toilet? I didn't think this was a compliment. Apparently, a brick shit house was a good thing to be. I don't know. But anyway, so she was now the star. And they would feature her at all these gigs. And they gigged all over Southern Florida, usually at a nursing home. And then she'd call me and say, oh my God, we killed. And I thought, yeah, there's the likelihood. It's very possible. Could have happened. But she was happy. She was so happy. Now, her big song was Wind Beneath My Wings, which is actually, it's a hard song. It's like not easy. She loved Bette Midler. That was her big song. So she decided she was going to throw my dad a 70th birthday party and surprise him and tribute this song in front of all of her friends. And we had to fly down for it. And I'm so nervous for her. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a train wreck. Holy shit. But in fact, I thought, okay, she's been practicing. How bad could it actually be? So, all right, we get down there, and she's really excited. She books a restaurant that has a neon sign that says chops and cocktails. That's supposed to be that's like classy. And it's adjacent to a walk-in kidney dialysis. Whatever, it's in a strip mall. So, all right, we go. And it's actually, we're having fun. My father is surprised. It's a great party. Now, I warn my children, all three of them at this time were under 9 years old. And I say, whatever you do, you're not to laugh, no squirming. You're just going to love every minute, no matter what. Because I've already set it up thinking this is going to be a shit show. All right, now, everybody eats their T-bones and their whiskey sours, and it's time. And my mother looks like a ghost, like her eyes are bulging. And I'm like, oh shit, she's getting nervous. I said, Mom, it's fine, you got this. She said, no, I left Mr. Microphone home. Now there's no time. I can't get back to her condo to get Mr. Microphone. I said, Mom, you're just gonna have to do without it. Now, this woman, God bless this woman. I'm so glad this woman was my mom. She doesn't miss a beat. She grabs an empty wine goblet off of a table and commits to the bit that it is a microphone. And she holds it up. She moves away a wire, and she's moving it for feedback. And I'm like, what the heck? And meanwhile, she has a guy playing a keyboard, this big dude. All right, so she starts singing, and holy shit, she's amazing. She really could sing, and all those years when she told us, and we were such horrible children, rolling our eyes hard to the right, she could sing. She really could sing. The crowd went nuts. She killed them. Without killing them, it was great. And my dad was so grateful. He was just so happy. It was probably, she was 70 at the time, it was probably the best day she had ever had, because this woman finally realized who she was, and she wasn't going to let anybody rain on her goddamn parade. Okay, so about a year later, they're all settled in. She's busy gigging. My father's busy trailing her like her roadie. And then one night, we get the call. Now, nothing, as we all know, nothing good happens after midnight. and no one ever wants a 2 a.m. phone call. And it was my dad. Apparently, my mother had a stroke, and he said, "You better get down here." And I just couldn't believe it. This was totally shocking. So I got the first JetBlue flight the next morning. I got down there, and I went into her room. She was already in a coma, and I was like petting her hand. But if you've ever pet someone who's in a coma, they're like a Madame Tussauds like wax museum. Like they're there, but they're not really. She wasn't there. I knew she wasn't there. It was like I kept thinking maybe she'd react. There was no reaction. I knew right away that she was gone. And I was beside myself because now I'm left with this guy that was supposed to move out when I was 9, who I barely knew. Oh my God, all right. So, and we're not Jews. And all right, but here's the thing that was really funny. My parents, who never had a nickel, they had no business savvy, but they made one investment because they watched game shows like Wheel of Fortune, and they heard from either Alex Trebek or Henry Winkler that they should buy burial insurance. And because my parents had this incredible devotion to death and dying, and they had this like they would call every time a distant cousin, "Guess who died?" Like, I'm gonna know who died, some cousin I never met. But it served them well because they had this insurance. So everything was covered. And here I am in shock. I'm in New York. I gotta now rent another rabbi, which I appeal to my friends. And my father has to find a flight to fly my mom in cargo and him on another JetBlue flight. All of it's paid for. I mean, they never were smart enough to invest in garages or apartment buildings in Williamsburg, but funeral insurance, that they had. So, but I didn't have to pay for it. So, all right. So I got to figure this out. Now, I decide, while my father's working this out, that I'm going to take care of the eulogy. I'm not letting this to chance. I don't want some smelly rabbi that I don't know talking about my mother, who I adored. So I wrote the eulogy, and then I came up with this genius idea that after I gave the eulogy, I would have a CD of Bette Midler's greatest hits, singing "Wind Beneath My Wings," and I would just hit play, and I'd let it wash over the audience. Always the theatrical one. So everything was going fine, and I got up there. I was nervous, but I was still such in shock because my mother just died. So I just barreled through, and I told everybody how this woman who saw so much pain and hardship and loss, and yet she still was so devoted to her family. She'd made huge sacrifices, and she still had this incredible spirit, and everyone who knew her loved her. And then I hit play, and everybody is weeping, and the music is washing over the house. It's like being in the Beaches movie theater. And then I realized, before it's almost over, that it's not like an edited thing. There's another song going to come up after "Wind Beneath My Wings." So I'm like perching, like I'm going to jump up, but I don't want to be obvious because it's distracting. And so this is what happens. All right, so the crowd laughs, and I don't know what to do, but all I can think about, which I know I have to maintain is true, that this was exactly what this woman would have wanted. This is who she was. She was like one big boogie-woogie with the big boobs, dame and her brassiere, and I thought, okay, mission accomplished, and it was okay. All right, so time passes, and my father is back in Florida. He has no interest in living with us. I get it. Why would you? And he goes back to Florida, and he's fine. Time passes, and now he's visiting us in New York, and he's sitting across from me at a table. And Keith is sitting next to me, my husband to my left. And this is like a Last Supper, and there's nothing holy or Christian about it. I am so angry at this man, unreasonably angry at him. I can't even look at him. But this is his last night in New York. I'm not going to fight with him. Now, Keith, who's like a precog, he's like one of those people who just knows what's happening. He's holding my hand really tight. And like to the unknown observer in this busy restaurant, they think, oh, it's a happy family. They're out to dinner on a Sunday night. How adorable. What they don't know is he's holding my hand like that because he knows if he lets go, I might like lunge at my father with my fork because I'm so unreasonably angry at him. Now, he's in town for my mom's unveiling. Now, if you're not Jewish, what an unveiling is you have to wait a whole year after that maudlin affair, traipse back to the scene of the crime, and then this rabbi, who we had to rent another rabbi, he says a few words, and then with like a Yiddish abracadabra, he flings off the sheet with the new headstone. It's like the saddest Groundhog Day ever. It's just, but you have to do it because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my dad. And on his last night, I promised him we would go to his and my mom's favorite restaurant, Sammy's Romanian on Christie Street. It's the best. It is a national monument. If you've not been there, you must go. It's been around probably since the Nixon administration. They haven't washed the windows since the Nixon administration. Doesn't matter. The place is pretty much dreamy. And they love this place. It's got everything. And it reminds me so much of my mother. There's the chicken schmaltz, the fat on the table, and the old school seltzer bottles. And then they bring out an ice block with stolichnaya. And the waiter serves it in, I'm sure they were recycled like Welch's jelly glasses. Doesn't matter. It's just great. And then the pièce de resistance. This dude with a like crooked toupee sitting in the middle of the room with his Casio keyboard, like straight from the Catskills, and he's taking requests and he's singing and people sing with him, and the big song of the night is "Give us a song, I'm the schmata man." And I mean, Billy Joel, if he had enough Stolchnai, he even would have liked this guy. I mean, it was something to behold. And I'm still angry, but the vodka's starting to work. Now here's why I'm angry. Okay, here's why I'm angry, and I had a good reason. My mother, 71, she died because of her own addiction. Now, it wasn't pills, it wasn't booze, it was sugar. Okay, this woman, there was not a piece of sugar she didn't like. Now, her gateway drug was what she had introduced me to, those cling peaches in heavy syrup, which, if you haven't had it, it's like the best fruit you'll ever have. But she downward spiraled all the way to those McDonald's apple pies that come in the cardboard, and it says on the front, "Danger, hot." She used to have like the strings in her mouth because she couldn't wait. She was just so into the sugar. And she'd say, "Oh no, I don't need that." Meanwhile, in her car, there were all those empty envelopes. I knew she wasn't fooling anybody. And she was a type 2 diabetic, so she would shoot herself up. She thought she was gaming the system. And my father had finally found a way to get my mom to really like him because he was providing. He was the classic enabler. He was giving her the sugar. The sugar was the glue that kept these two people married. And it went on like that for years, and I begged her to stop, but she wouldn't listen. She kept saying, "I have it under control. I have it under control." Obviously she didn't, because now she's gone. And now I'm stuck with this dude who I barely know, and I'm so angry. Okay, so we eat the dinner. I'm drunk, but I'm still angry. But I think, just get through tomorrow, I got to get back on the plane. So we leave, and we get home, and I'm like, drunk and sick, but it doesn't matter. I'm on schedule. We get him home. And Keith brings him downstairs to his room. He makes sure his bag is packed. And I go upstairs. Keith can't find me. 20 minutes has passed. I'm not in the bedroom. I'm not in the kitchen. He thinks I've wandered onto the post road in some sort of delusional state. Like, he finds me. I am blackout drunk in my closet in the fetal position, and I'm hugging one brown suede boot. For some reason, I found that a comfort. And he had to pry me off the boot. He had to wash me down. I probably smelled like really old yogurt. And he had to get me washed up, and then he put me to bed. And smartly, he set my alarm because he knew it was in everybody's health to get me to the airport. And the next morning, we get up. I'm still drunk when I get up. I'm not really a big drinker, but I don't care. I get up. My father's up. We go to Kennedy Airport. We don't talk, but we never talk. It doesn't matter. We drive to the airport. And then I do something I have never done. We pull up, and I double park. Now, I'm afraid of 3 things in this world: dying in the ocean by drowning, a grease fire in my kitchen, and getting towed. And at this moment, now the TA guys, they're blowing their obnoxious whistles, and I don't listen. I'm in control. I get out of the car. And I walk my dad up on the curb with his, board thing, the roller board. And just as we're just going to say goodbye, because we just don't have a relationship, I grab him. And I hug him. I mean, I reverse Heimlich hug him. And he's rigid. I could feel him thinking, oh, she's going to break a rib or something. I know he's thinking this is an angry hug. It's not. And I don't let go, even though he's totally... And finally, I can feel him lean in, almost hugging me back. This man, my father, is the only connection I still have to my mother. And I know at that moment when he lets go and I let go, we were going to be okay. And he left, and that was it. Okay, so he goes back home. Time passes. we go on with our lives, and eventually we decide to sell our house in Scarsdale and move to White Plains because our kids are all going off to college. But here's the thing. There are 3 things that sociologists and psychologists will tell you are the worst traumas you can go through: death, divorce, and moving. Well, I had to deal with 2 in one day because we had packed up our house. It was on a moving van in the middle of August. We were ready to go to White Plains. The only thing left in our home was one landline telephone that I just forgot to unplug, and it rang. And now usually I wouldn't answer. I would just think it's someone selling me a prescription to a magazine. But for some reason I answered it, and it was Sunrise Hospital telling me that my father just died. My father died. Now, okay, I didn't have a great relationship with him, but he was my only link to my family. And I'm moving. I can't even call anybody because I have like an old school phone book. It's on the van. I don't know what to do. So I call an uncle and I say, can you start making phone calls? Now this time, I don't have time to ask friends for a rabbi. We're still not Jews. So I think I went to like Angie's List or, I don't know. I found some hack in the Bronx. I said, just meet us at the cemetery, which is Mount Hebron. We actually have a really nice plot. They really ponied up. It's got like perpetual care and benches, and it says Handelman. So I said, just meet me there. And I just pulled out of the top of a box the only thing I could find, because I didn't have any clothes. And I didn't have a sermon or anything. We just did it all graveside. It would happen really quickly. He got shipped up again by JetBlue, paid for by my parents. And when the service was over, we just sat in a Scarsdale diner eating his favorite meal, which was salami and eggs with ketchup, which is probably what killed him. I think it probably gave him a stroke. And that was it. And now I'm the matriarch. I'm like, no Ethel Kennedy. What? I'm the top of the line now. And I'm supposed to like set the example. And I'm like a hot mess, but this is something that I'm gonna have to do. And there's nothing I can do about it. All right, so here's the thing. Now, I don't have any regrets, okay? I did the best I could. And on some level, everybody in my family did their best too. I know that. And I don't know if there's an afterlife. I don't know if there's such a thing as guardian angels. But in the off chance that Greta is in her bra, ironing, watching somewhere, like up in these hot hell rafters, and my dad's in his dirty undershirt and my sister's is laughing, the only thing I thought we could seal the deal so I could really claim the end of the story was to do the one thing that my parents and my sister loved the most, which was sing our favorite song. But I decided to gild the lily because I can't sing. So what I did was, I've invited one of the most brilliant violinists internationally known. I don't know why she showed up. I think she just took pity, but she's here. Her name is Dami, and she's going to first play the first verse of my favorite song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and then everybody open up your programs and you will see the words, and when Dami gives us the cue, everybody has to sing, okay, and loud, because I can't sing. So, Marie, I'm talking to you. So everyone has to sing, and we're going to try to sing so loud that maybe one of the 3 of them will know how much I really did love them. And ignore me if I start to cry, because if I cried if I had a hammer, I really don't know what might happen. But I don't want, this is not a cheesy show. You know, I'm not out here for garment rending and slitting wrists. This is not that. So, but I need everybody to help out. So first we'll listen to Dami because she's really good, and she's here. And then she'll tell us, and then we're going to sing. Okay. Okay, is everybody ready?